The only news stemming from Texas is that no teams were penalized for the numerous amounts of pit road collisions which occurred in that race, which is kind of surprising to count that normally officials aren't really too keen on pit road accidents. So the fact that no one got any sort of penalty from that is kind of shocking. But anyway, this week the FARC LoBo Truck Tour heads to the Langhorne Speedway in Pennsylvania, a unique track in which FARC has not been to since 2008. And when I say unique is that it's in the form of a perfect circle, meaning that the track has no straights whatsoever. The track is 1 mile in length. This race will be 100 laps, which is 100 miles. Well, anyway, as you're seeing the starting lineup, which is scrolling at the bottom of your screen, you can see there's a lot of new teams that are entered this week that were not at Texas World. Just to point out that these teams will be joining the Truck Series roster. They are not just one-off teams showing up for this one race. They will be running a limited schedule for what I know. However, as you're probably seeing in the starting lineup at the bottom of the screen, none of them were particularly fast. Well, anyway, that's all the news leading up to this race. Now let's get on to the race itself. Chuck Johnson earns the Mile Out Pole Award as he and Kevin Monroe, starting on his outside, get ready for the flying start as Johnson's going to pull out to a decent lead early on as they're already 3 wide behind him. As you see Monroe going 3 wide with teammate Lawrence Burr and Ali Riggs. But as soon as the trucks come to full speed, as you can see, the rest of the field quickly reels in Johnson. As you see, Bradley Carlisle now start to make a move as he's now going to make the move on Johnson for the lead. Johnson doesn't even get to lead a lap. And as you see from this point on, you can see Johnson starting to work his way backwards. So yeah, obviously something I missed with that truck. My guess is that the team, after getting the pole, thought it would be a good idea to keep the qualifying set up in the car. That was obviously a bad decision. Now this happened right after the start. A 4-wide situation is going to go wrong. Dale Clow is going to get into the 8 of Paul Fitch. It's going to turn him into the 80 of Drew McDaniel. It's going to send all 3 of them into the wall. McDaniel and Fitch are driving 2 of the new teams that are entered for this week. As you see Clow pulling into pit road. Decent amount of damage on the 80 truck. As you see, this is in the back of the field. Like I said in the pre-race, that a lot of these new teams were really off the pace. Back up front, as you see Bradley Carlisle still leading. As you see Lawrence Burr making a move for the lead, as he's going to make it look easy as Burr's going to move into the lead of the race. As you saw in the shot, Taylor Brillin, who was in the 64 truck at Texas World, is now in a 3rd M&J truck, moving into the 3rd spot. That is the same number, scheme, and sponsor that she runs in the Elite Series. This truck will be showing up for a few races. However, to the best of my knowledge, she'll be still running a few races in the 64. Paul Fitch, who was involved in the lap 1 scuffle, is going to have an issue and is going to stall on track. As you see the field go by him there. As you can tell, he is safely on the inside of the track out of everybody's way. The caution will not come out. Meanwhile, back up front, Lawrence Burr is still in the lead as they put Drew McDaniels a lap down already. It's only lap 6. As you can also see, Jacob Wesley has gotten around both Taylor Brillin and Bradley Carlisle to move up to 2nd. As you see now, Carlisle battling with Kevin Monroe for that same position. Meanwhile, while that's going on, Ali Riggs' engine is going to grenade on her. But that's not the least of her troubles. She's then going to get turned by Gabriel Messina and is then going to spin back up to the outside wall. Luckily, she doesn't go back up in the traffic as that's going to be the first caution of the day, and that'll be the end of Riggs' race. Everybody from 8th on back is going to come to pit road during this caution. As you see, Richard Scott lead the way as Chuck Johnson right behind him. There will also be a small incident on pit road as Gabriel Messina is going to run into Scott trying to get into his pit stall. So looks like the pit road incompetence from Texas is going to carry over into this week as well. As the field lines up to take the restart, Bradley Carlisle's now going to blow up out of 4th. That's a real shame for Carlisle. As you see, can't seem to get a break so far as he was involved in a pretty nasty wreck at Texas. Carlisle, of course, won the national championship. Wait, so what is Carlisle doing? He's not pulling into pit road as it's clearly obvious that the engine has gone on the 7 truck and he's now staying out on the track, leaking oil all over the racing surface. Don't know what Carlisle's thinking there as the field's going to take the restart. Lawrence Burr's going to lead him to the green flag as Jacob Wesley still in 2nd as they quickly go past Dale Clow, who is multiple laps down. As you see Wesley trying to make a move on Burr for the lead as Wesley gets under him and it looks like he's going to take the lead from Lawrence Burr. as you see the other two M&J trucks of Taylor Berlin and Kevin Monroe battling each other for third. Dale Cloud's going to cause a huge stack up behind him, which is going to cause the 790 of Kathy Parker to turn the 88 of Andrew Gray into the outside wall. He's then going to be struck by Paul Fitch. Also the 81 of Tommy Haynes. That's going to be our second caution of the day. And then we'll also end the race for Gray and Fitch. Jacob Wesley is going to pit from the lead under caution. As you can see, Lawrence Burr staying out. But his two teammates, Berlin and Monroe, are going to come in with them. I think they're going to be the only cars to do so. And Jacob Wesley runs into Andrew Gray's damaged truck. The 17 of Patrick Johansson is now going to blow up under caution. That is the third engine failure of the race already. And he's going to do the same thing that Bradley Carlisle did and not pull into pit road, giving the track officials even more fluid to clean up. But that won't be the only engine failure this caution, as Kathy Parker is also going to blow up. Parker is driving for one of the newer teams that enter this week. Matter of fact, this team is actually owned by Flying High Motorsports, the same team that fields cars for Laura and Luke Ocean in the Elite Series. So I wouldn't necessarily call this a brand new team, but anyway, their Truck Series efforts off to a bad start. And this is the reason why Patrick Johansson should have come to pit road when his engine blew up, because he's not going to make it back around, as he's going to stall on track. Here comes the leaders now, as, what the hell is going on here? You see Lawrence Burr realizes what's going on, and, okay. Alright, this is weird. I just see Kathy Parker's smoking truck go by him, as... Okay, I don't know what's going on here. Fortunately, everybody would escape with only minor damage. And we would have yet another engine failure this caution. This time it would be the 80 of Drew McDaniel, who was involved in the lap 1 scuffle. However, this would effectively take him out of the race. Here's Alvin Waters, another one of the new teams, and he's okay, this is getting ridiculous now. We've now already had 6 engine failures within the first 20 laps of this race, 4 of them which came under this caution. I know FARC engines have had a reputation not to last, but come on. Lawrence Burr is going to lead the field to the restart, as the field's going to quickly go by the 2 lap cars of Tommy Haynes and Dale Clow. As you see, Leland Rogers, another one of the new teams, running in second. Stacy St. Martin is running in third right now. Great run for her so far. She's now in the middle of a 3-wide battle between Chuck Johnson and Richard Scott. As we'll take a look at that battle now, as Richard Scott has the clear advantage. As the trucks go to full speed, St. Martin's clearly going to be at a disadvantage. St. Martin running for the title. We predicted before the season started that the regulars were going to have a hard time keeping up with the part-time teams, which clearly have more money behind them. So far that has proven to be the case, as Chuck Johnson continuing to have issues keeping up as well, and he's not running full-time as he's running full-time in the NPCC. Here is Leland Rogers, who's already lost second to Richard Scott and is about to lose third to Gabriel Messina. Rogers, who is making his first truck start today, will also be running full-time in modifieds this season, and he will now also run a limited schedule in trucks. But anyway, great run so far by him and this almost evil racing team. Why do I get the feeling that I've seen this team before? Here is Jeremy Baker, currently running in the 5th position, and is also the highest running regular. Baker is considered by most to be the favorite to win the title after finishing 3rd in points last season. However, the way things are set up this season, I don't think we're going to see Baker run as well as he did last year. As I said earlier, full-time teams are probably going to have a hard time keeping up with the part-time teams. As here's an example of what I'm talking about. You can see Jacob Wesley quickly reeling in Baker. As you see, the speed difference is pretty substantial. It ain't a dramatic difference, but it is enough, especially on a track like this when you're running at a consistent speed the entire distance. The leader's going to catch up to the 81 of Tommy Haynes, and he's going to hold up the leader Lawrence Burr, as here comes the rest of the field, as he's going to cause quite the stack up behind him, as Richard Scott and Taylor Berlin are going to get around Burr, as Burr's going to drop back to 3rd. As you can see, Scott and Berlin have already opened up quite a lead on Burr. As we're going to take a look at that battle now, as you can see, Taylor Berlin not afraid to use the bumper, as she is all over the back of Richard Scott. As you see, whoa, almost sideways there. She now makes a move on Scott going into, I don't even know how to say that. The whole track's one big turn. But anyway, Berlin's going to take the lead nonetheless, as they come across the 2 lap cars of Dale Clow, and that is the 60 of Kevin Parks. That's another one of the new teams. Soon afterwards, they're going to catch up to the 35 of Jesus Ignacio Chavez III. That is one of the regulars. As you can tell, it's the huge difference in speed between the two, as he's now lapped down. And here comes Tommy Haynes to hold up Taylor Brillin as Lawrence Burr goes right by her. The same truck that cost Burr the lead has now gotten him the lead back. Now, this is only 4 laps after Burr was held up by him. As you can obviously tell how slow Haynes is. He's about running 30 miles per hour off the pace of the leaders. So he is running dangerously slow right now. Some of you may not remember who this is. This is John Burr, the owner of the infamous Team Burr that runs in the Elite Series. He's also the father of Lawrence Burr. John Burr himself is a former Elite Series driver who never did anything other than winning at Talladega, as he's now running in trucks to the disdain of everybody, but at least he's staying out of the way, as you see in here, which is nice considering that he hasn't been in a car in so long. Meanwhile, Lawrence Burr has pulled out to an astounding lead until the engine goes on the 64. There goes the 7th engine to grenade this race, as it looks like M&J reliability strikes again. Here is Vincenzo Focasato, currently running in the 11th position. We haven't talked about him all day. Focasato is once again running for the championship, as he finished 7th in points in 2013. Hasn't won a race yet, however he did win 2 poles last season, as he's currently running behind AJ Reed, who is in the 10th spot. As you saw on the shot there, Taylor Brillin is closing up on this pack. As you can tell, the difference in speed between the regulars and the other cars. Matter of fact, Focasato is actually trailing a pack of regulars. As you can see, look how quick Taylor Brillin is catching Focasato, as he's going to be put a lap down. That is 11th position, remember. And soon afterwards, she's going to put Reed, Chuck Johnson, and Stacy St. Martin a lap down. That is 8th, 9th, and 10th. So that leaves 7 cars on the lead lap. Jeremy Baker is the only regular that's on the lead lap still, and I wouldn't be surprised if Brillin put him a lap down within the next couple of laps. Again, props to Stacy St. Martin, who's having a very clean race so far. St. Martin has had a reputation of being a wrecker and hasn't shown any speed at all. Now she's actually starting to show some speed. She shows some speed in 2 Elite Series races so far, and she's having a decent run right now. So, good for her. Soon after that, guess what happens? Another engine failure! This time it is Vincenzo Focasato, and that is the 8th engine detonation of the race. Tough break for Focasato, who had a 4th place run at Texas World. That's going to put him back in the championship, as it looks like he's going to actually go into pit road, unlike Bradley Carlisle did earlier in the race. As that will be the end of the day for Focasato. As wait a minute, there's trouble in front of him as they go by him. Dylan Andrews is going to get in the back of Philip Borland, which is going to turn him towards the inside of the track. But then Borland's going to come back up onto the track in front of Andrews, going to put him, Andrew, and John Burr into the wall. As you can see, the smoke billowing out of Borland's truck. That will end his day. Andrew, which would drive back to the pits, he'll be done as well. Here's an onboard shot of Andrew. As you can see here, he's all over the back bumper of Borland, as he's going to turn him right here. Borland corrects it, but then comes back up into Andrew, is going to turn both of them into the wall. John Burr is an innocent victim in that, as Burr will be able to continue on. Andrew would drive away, but as I said earlier, he would be done. The entire field will come into pit road during that caution. However, AJ Reed and Chuck Johnson would come back into pit road afterwards. Apparently some sort of issue with both of those trucks. They would spend multiple laps on pit road, and AJ Reed runs into the back of Angelina Hawk. Richard Scott would beat everybody off of pit road, as he will lead on this restart. Jacob Wesley, his teammate, starting right behind him. Stacy St. Martin, the first truck a lap down. Now we're going to show you an example of how the speed difference between the regulars and the other trucks. As you see, right now they're about equal, but as I mentioned earlier, as they get up to full speed, you're going to notice the clear speed difference here as St. Martin starts working her way backwards. As you see, Jeremy Baker, who restarted 3rd, is doing the same. Engine number 9. Which one will blow up this time? And it will be the engine on truck number 9 of Taylor Brillin, and will be the 9th engine failure of the race. I apologize for that rhyme before, that was awful. Mike Howard running, I believe, in the 9th position. Howard ran a partial schedule last season and won 2 races out of the 6 he ran. Because of that, many people believe that Howard will be able to contend for the championship this year. However, so far, he's not really impressing much, even out of the regulars. Battle for second really heating up between Jacob Wesley and Gabriel Messina, as they're going to come across the lap car of John Burr, and it's going to hold up Jacob Wesley, and it's going to allow Messina to go on by, and he's also going to let Kevin Monroe go by him. Wesley's going to drop back to fourth. Meanwhile, back up front, Scott's still in the lead, but Messina is catching him, despite having that front end damage from the pit road contact early in the race. Scott, of course, is a regular in the Elite Series for this same team. Matter of fact, Messina also running in the Elite Series full-time, as these guys are running a limited schedule in the trucks as they come across the two-lap trucks of Angelina Hawk and Kevin Parks, and they're racing each other, and that's going to break Scott's momentum, and it's going to give Messina the lead. And for what I know, that battle between Hawk and Parks is not for position. But Scott stays with Messina as he doesn't get much of a gap on him, but guess who they're going to run into next? The 81 of Tommy Haynes, as he's about to be put a 7th lap down, and that's going to effectively take Scott out of the battle for the lead, as Messina is going to get a huge gap now, as Scott's still being held up by Haynes, as Kevin Monroe now catches up to him, as they both seem to go around him. Now, we've known that Haynes has been dangerously slow the entire race, but on top of that, he seems to have no consideration for the leaders at all, as this is now the 3rd time he has affected the battle for the lead. Just a little after halfway, Jeremy Baker, the last regular on the lead lap, is going to be put a lap down by leader Gabriel Messina. This will now leave 5 trucks on the lead lap, as Messina passed him like he was standing still. At this point now, Gabriel Messina now has about a 2.5 second lead as he comes across the lap trucks of Jesus Ignacio Chavez III and AJ Reed, as they're racing each other. That's not for position either, as Reed spent a few laps on pit road. Chavez is now, I believe, 2 laps down, but Messina is going to get by both of them without too much difficulty, as Messina now puts Tommy Haynes an 8th lap down. I'm surprised he hasn't been parked yet. We're now going to show you how spread out the 5 trucks that are on the lead lap are, as there goes Richard Scott, there goes Kevin Monroe in 3rd, here comes Jacob Wesley in 4th, and there's going to be a long gap between 4th and 5th. I see a bunch of lap trucks, as still waiting. And there goes Leland Rogers, who is in the 5th position. Jeremy Baker, who looks like there goes Messina again, as Baker looks like he's about to lose another lap. Baker is in 6th, the first car lap down after all. More problems for the 51 of AJ Reed, as he's now going to slow down on the track. As I said earlier, Reed spent a numerous amount of laps on pit road under the last caution due to an unknown issue. And now it looks like there's more problems with that truck. He will make it back to pit road, and he will continue on. Kevin Parks is going to be the next engine to blow up. That is the 10th engine lost today, as Jeremy Baker struggles to get around him, as for some reason Parks is not getting off the track, and Chuck Johnson runs right into the back of him. Yeah, I really don't know who to blame that one on. Here's an onboard shot of Johnson, who was running multiple laps down. As you can see, he just runs into the back of him, doesn't even attempt to try to avoid him. Funny thing is that he actually did the same exact thing at Texas when someone was slow on the track. But then again, it's also equally Park's fault because he didn't even try to go on the inside of the track. Well, anyway, as you see the smoke coming out of Johnson's truck, he'd be done for the day as a result of this as well. Soon after that, under caution after pit stops, there goes number 11, and that is the 0 of Dale Clow, who has had a disastrous race from the beginning, getting into somewhat of a scuffle on lap 1. Thankfully, this will be the final engine failure of the race. I mean, the unreliability of these engines are absolutely ridiculous. To give you an example, we have currently 16 trucks out of the race, 11 of them were because of engine failures. Richard Scott would beat everybody off of pit road and would lead on the restart. Jacob Wesley, his teammate, would restart right behind him in 2nd. Gabriel Messina is in 3rd. Kevin Monroe 4th. Leland Rogers in 5th. Remember, those are the only 5 trucks on the lead lap, as Scott struggling to get around the 51 of AJ Reed to start with, but as soon as the trucks come to full speed, because remember, Reed's a regular, Scott's going to blow right by him, is going to pull out to a decent gap as the rest of the lead lap trucks deal with the slower regulars. As you see them going 3 wide as a result, as Wesley is stuck behind the 51. That's going to allow Leland Rogers to move up into the 2nd spot, as Messina now hounding. Oh, they make contact. St. Martin's is around. Caution is going to come out as Messina hooks the back of Wesley's truck, which is going to cause him to go into St. Martin, into the parallel Kevin Monroe, and it's going to turn her into the outside walls. I think Mike Howard got a piece of that as well. St. Martin would continue on as she would drive away from this. Tough break for St. Martin to despite being 2 laps down, I think. She was one of the highest running regulars all day, as she gets caught in an accident that's surprisingly not her fault. Riding along with Howard now, as you see the accident happen in front of him as he just clips the front end of St. Martin's truck. Howard would continue the race as well, as he's been kind of having a lackluster day so far. Not the kind of performance you would expect from a guy who won 2 out of 6 last season. Richard Scott would continue to lead on the restart. As you saw before the caution, Leland Rogers moved up into second. As you're going to see, Rogers gets a terrible start, and he's going to hold up everybody behind him, and that's going to allow Scott, who is going to pull ahead of Jeremy Baker, who was a lap down, and that's going to allow Scott to pull into a huge lead as Rogers now receiving pressure from Gabriel Messina and Kevin Monroe. Here's a look at that battle now as Monroe goes inside of both Messina and Rogers and is going to take the second spot. And it looks like he's going to quickly get around Jeremy Baker as well, and leaving Rogers and Messina to deal with him now, as Monroe, the last remaining M&J truck, still has a shot to win this thing. And Monroe is eventually going to catch up to Scott, bringing Messina with him, as we're going to come to 20 to go this time by. M&J Racing, remember, did not participate in the series last season after winning the championship in 2012. But they are back here in 2014. Oh wait, Monroe's got a problem, as he is slow on the track as Messina goes by him. There goes Leland Rogers, as big time problems for the 63 truck. He would pull it into pit road. He would not retire from the race, but he would lose multiple laps in doing so. Meanwhile, Scott's still in the lead with Messina lurking right behind him, but Tommy Haynes is going to once again interfere with the battle for the lead, as Messina is going to blow right by the both of them. As here comes Leland Rogers, as he's going to turn. Oh wait, he turns Richard Scott into the wall, and that's going to be the 6th and final caution of the day, as there was very little Rogers could do on that situation, as there was very little room down there, as he has no choice but to turn Scott, who was being held up by Haynes, who has been doing this the entire race. At this point, I'm surprised that he hasn't been parked yet, and the worst part is, judging from how slow Haynes has been all day, they're probably going to run into him again before this race is over. Gabriel Messina leads on the restart with 12 laps to go, as he would quickly get around the lap trucks on the inside line, but so would Leland Rogers, who finally gets a good restart. Jacob Wesley still sits in third, and why was Jeremy Baker starting on the outside line when he was 2 laps down? Well, anyway, Wesley challenging Rogers for second now, but that's going to allow Messina to pull away to a decent lead, and Richard Scott now joining the battle as well. As we're going to take a look at that battle now, as Scott currently has the 3rd position over Rogers, and is now trying to fight his teammate Wesley for the 2nd spot. Scott obviously has more experiences in high level of racing, as he runs full-time in the Elite Series. Wesley ran full-time in Regional Cup last season, and if I'm not mistaken, he was really competitive in that. And as I also mentioned earlier, Rogers running full-time in Modifieds this season. And as you can see, Rogers fighting back Scott for the 3rd spot. But what these guys fail to realize is, while they're focused on battling with each other, that's allowing Messina to open up his lead, as Scott continuing to fight back. He ain't giving up the spot just yet, as he's going to try to fight Rogers for that spot, as they're both dead even around the track, but Scott's eventually going to have the advantage, and he's going to get around Rogers for 3rd, and is now battling Wesley for 2nd. And while those 3 are fighting for the runner-up spot, Gabriel Messina is running away with this, as we're coming to the closing stages of this race, as we now got 6 laps to go, as Messina also running full-time. And here comes Tommy Haynes again, and it's going to hold up Messina and Richard Scott. Is going to allow both Wesley and Rogers to go by the both of them, as Haynes just cost Messina and Scott a shot to win this race. Where the hell is this guy's spotter? And due to Haynes' inability to yield for the leaders, the battle for the win is going to come down between these 2 right here, Leland Rogers and Jacob Wesley. Remember, Rogers making his first ever truck start, Wesley running his 2nd. Remember, Wesley did start at Texas, although he was taken out fairly early in that race, as Mike Howell goes another lap down, as we're now coming to the very end of this race, as it's now become a 2-horse battle for the win. With 4 laps to go, Richard Scott's going to come into pit road for some unknown reason, but unlike everybody else that's coming to pit road off cycle, he's just going to stop and go. As you see him pull in here, and then 2 seconds later he's just going to pull back out. Matter of fact, he's not even going to lose a lap, so don't know what that was all about. As we now have 2 to go, it is still a 2-horse battle for the win, with Leland Rogers and Jacob Wesley. As they just put Stacey Martin out down, she stays out of the way, as they're going to come to take the white flag this time by. Rogers has the advantage. Wesley desperately trying to close up that gap and make a move for the lead. However, I don't know if Wesley can do it. He's going to have to time it perfectly if he has a run. But for the way it's looking right now, it looks like that's not going to happen. Oh no, they're going to run into Tommy Haynes again, and he's going to hold up Leland Rogers, and Wesley's going to go on by. And Tommy Haynes, who has been a total nuisance to the leaders the entire race, is ultimately going to decide the outcome of it. As you see there, Wesley going right by Rogers, and he almost loses the second spot to Gabriel Messina as well. But because of one team's inability to move out of the way for the leaders, Jacob Wesley, in only his second truck start, is going to win here at Langhorne. This is, I believe, the Wesley family racing team's first win in a FARC division. It's really a shame that it had to be earned like this. Leland Rogers is going to have to settle for second. That's got to be gut-wrenching to lose that race because of the same person that has been doing essentially the same thing the entire race. Now, I know that lap traffic getting in the way, that's inevitable. But when it's the same person doing it the entire race, I mean, seriously. But one thing Rogers should be happy about, he pretty much ran top 5 most of the day in his first truck start. So great job for him and that Almost Evil racing team, who I can almost swear I've seen before. Gabriel Messina will finish in the 3rd position. He will get the 5 bonus points for leading the most laps. However, it doesn't really make a difference for him, being that he's not running the whole season. But considering that he's new to FARC, I want to say he's doing quite well for himself. So great job by the Brazilian driver. Richard Scott would finish 4th despite the late race pit stop, which we still have no idea what was for. He still finishes on the lead lap despite the pit stop, and he would be the last car to finish on the lead lap. Jeremy Baker would be the highest finishing regular in 5th. The first truck 1 lap down. Yeah, as a matter of fact, he actually finished 2 laps down. If that doesn't show you the difference between the regulars and everybody else, I don't know what will. Jesus Ignacio Chavez III finishes in 6th, 3 laps down. He will, however, get the hard charger bonus, which is also 5 points. And it actually will matter for him because he actually is running for the championship. Kevin Monroe, who had issues towards the end of the race, will finish in 7th, 3 laps down. Stacy St. Martin finishes 8th, 4 laps down after that late race accident. I would say it was a great run for St. Martin beforehand, considering her history. Mike Howard finishes in 9th, also 4 laps down, who also was involved in that same accident. But otherwise, it was a lackluster day for Howard. This is obviously not the same Mike Howard we saw last season. And rounding out the top 10, it is Angelina Hawk. We haven't talked a lot about her today. She had a quiet run the entire race, didn't blow up most of all, and finished 10th. However, an interesting thing to note that she did finish 5 laps ahead of 11th place. So yeah, that just goes to show you how many cars were actually left running in the race. Now let's take a look at the point standings. After 2 races, Richard Scott is leading the points as he's the only driver to finish in the top 5 both races. However, that is kind of irrelevant, being that he's not running the full schedule. Jesus Ignacio Chavez III is in second, 8 points behind Scott. Now he is running for the championship, so right now he is the driver to watch as he's the highest running regular. He is 13 points ahead of the next highest regular, which is Mike Howard in 4th. In between both of them is Gabriel Messina in 3rd. Jacob Wesley moves up into 5th with the win. However, he's not running for the championship either. However, these next 2 are Stacey St. Martin, who moves up to 6th, and Jeremy Baker, who moves up to 7th after being involved in a very scary crash at Texas World. Now, interesting thing about Baker is that he's also entering this weekend 2nd in the Elite Series points, and he's not running the full schedule in that. So, yeah, I'm guessing both the Elite Series and trucks have that problem. Baker sits 35 points behind Richard Scott, 27 points behind Chavez. Chuck Johnson moves up to 8th despite not finishing both races. So, don't know how that happened there. Vincenzo Focasato drops down to 9th after blowing up, so he takes a hit in the points. And rounding out the top 10 points is Taylor Brillin, who also failed to finish both races. Another interesting thing to note, 3 of the top 10 points are Elite Series regulars who are not running the full schedule. But guys like Chavez, Baker, Howard, and oddly enough St. Martin have shown what they can do among themselves. So we'll see how this battle plays out as the series now heads to the Albuquerque Speed Bowl in New Mexico.